Hi family, I'm in bed about to sleep, and when I wake, I will transform into the most incredible human being you have ever seen. Not, I'll go to the hospital, it is much safer there, and I hear that the special tonight is tomato soup. Delicious, nutritious. I love you all very much, but not enough to send an individual text. Sorry about that. Time is sleep, and I must be on my way. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. XO. On the morning of December 1, 2010, friends and family members of Phoebe Handsjuk received this text message. Concerned, a number of recipients attempted to reach her, but got no answer. Phoebe's grandmother contacted Anthony, Phoebe's boyfriend, who lived with her in a luxurious high-rise apartment. According to Anthony, Phoebe was recovering from a night of heavy drinking, but otherwise seemed fine that morning, which reassured her worried loved ones. The next day, Phoebe's father called his daughter to inform her that he would be late to a scheduled dinner between the pair and Anthony. He got no answer, then less than a minute later, he received a call from Anthony, who had never called him before. Anthony told him that he had not seen Phoebe and that she was not at the apartment. When Anthony arrived home at 6 p.m, he found broken glass on the kitchen floor and small droplets of blood on the mouse and keyboard of a computer. Phoebe's wallet, keys and purse were still in the apartment, and her hair straightener was plugged in and switched on, but there was no sign of Phoebe herself. Despite these troubling signs, Anthony did not think anything was wrong. He ordered takeaway food from the same restaurant he and Phoebe had planned on going to. At 7 p.m, the building's concierge ran into the basement in search of a broom when she discovered the body of Phoebe Handsjuk. Police concluded that the 24-year-old had plunged 40 meters, feet first, down the building's garbage chute. She survived the fall, but her right foot had been nearly severed by the garbage compactor at the bottom of the chute, leading her to bleed to death. It was determined that Phoebe had died of suicide or a freak accident. The autopsy showed that she had the sleeping pill, Stilnox, in her system, and she'd been drinking heavily. Phoebe Handsjuk had a history of mental illness, particularly dealing with depression and anxiety, as well as substance abuse issues. It would seem like an open and shut case that while suicidal or suffering from delusions, she jumped into the garbage chute, falling to her death. Phoebe had unexplained bruises on her arms and wrists. All of her outgoing emails had been deleted, and her Nokia cell phone remains missing. Police failed to check CCTV footage to prove that the deceased had entered the garbage chute. There were also no fingerprints on the outside of the chute. It appeared to have been wiped clean. A woman with a similar build to Phoebe was brought in to attempt to enter a replica of the garbage chute. She managed to enter the tiny chute after multiple failed attempts with some assistance. Unlike Phoebe, this woman was sober and still found it extremely difficult to enter the chute. This led the independent investigators to state that it was virtually impossible for Phoebe to enter the chute on her own. A coroner's inquest into the death of Phoebe Handsjuk was held. The coroner found that the sleeping pills mixed with alcohol severely impacted her mental state. He suggested that Phoebe had dropped a glass and then in the process of cleaning it up had cut her finger, explaining blood found on the keyboard and mouse. While dumping a bag of rubbish down the chute, Phoebe's enthusiasm for climbing in a sleepwalking-like state compelled her to enter the chute, and with no consideration of the consequences, began to climb down to the ground floor before falling to her death. The coroner ruled Phoebe's death an accident, finding no evidence of a murder taking place or motive for one to occur. Phoebe's grandfather commented that, "It is my opinion that she was killed by one or more people." He found it absurd to suggest Phoebe was able to enter the chute by herself. While Phoebe's family pushed hard for the coroner's inquest to take place, they were dissatisfied with the verdict. They assure Phoebe was murdered, suggesting, "I think she may have said something to upset someone. I don't know who, but I think that she's been injured, and whoever was involved has panicked and tried to get rid of her." While her grandfather has speculated that the death may have been linked to the Melbourne drug trade. In June 2018, Bailey Schneider was found dead in her parents' home with a cord wrapped around her neck. Her death was ruled suicide by asphyxiation, but her parents were adamant that someone else had to have been involved due to the setting of where she was found. At the inquest, the coroner found that while there were unusual aspects, there was no forced entry or sign of a struggle. She concluded, "I am satisfied that Miss Schneider, while affected by drugs, alcohol, prescription medication, and cocaine, upset by relationship difficulties, made an impulsive decision to end her own life." At the time of her death, Bailey Schneider was dating an events promoter named Anthony, the same Anthony who had dated Phoebe Handsjuk 8 years earlier. While investigators have concluded that both women died by accident or suicide and labelled the connection as a coincidence, others have theorised that something more sinister is at play.